Hey guys, welcome back to the Bro Force Squad podcast. This is our Westworld episode 9 review. If you are still sticking with us, you know, just as we know, that this show has gotten even crazier somehow. I am your host, Jeff Hornacek. Alongside me, as always, on this journey is Alex English. Alex, last week we came in with our minds exploded, our brain matter on the floor, as we frequently do. This week, you and I have kind of run the gamut of emotions between angrily cursing out the creators of this show and then also getting excited again. Where are you at right now? And if you aren't angry, how can we make you angry on the podcast?
Well, I mean, we could just change topics and speak about, the French or something, or that'll make me pretty pissed. But in terms of the show, I'm going to go back to when we watched it on Sunday, and after it was over, we were texting each other. And my initial reaction and your initial reaction were pretty much the same. We were like, well, that was all really well done and everything, but I think the viewers are smarter than the show at this point, and I don't trust at this point that they can do something to surprise us in the last episode. And then you said that it was confirmed by Evan Rachel Wood on Twitter that the finale is going to be 90 minutes. So then I kind of did a 180, and I was like, all right, well, 90 minutes, they have to have something in there, right? That's still going to blow our minds. So yeah. I'm still kind of holding out hope. But yeah, the episode, I think I told you that I thought it was like pretty much the dud, just because we were so over-prepared for everything we saw.
Yeah, I think especially last episode, you and I really, really gave the showrunners a lot of fucking credit. Like, we were basically worshiping at the temple and the altar of Johnathan Nolan, assuming that he had something prepared for the end of this show that was just going to destroy everything that we ever thought we knew about any type of medium and television. And after last episode, I think we're a little bit afraid, and I don't think I'll say this often, but I really, really hope we're wrong. But I think we're a little bit afraid that because this show's been dug into so much on the internet that people might have actually guessed the end game.
Yeah, like solved it, right?
I don't know. People are sick on the internet. We love you guys out there who have these theories and predictions. So thank you for that. But I think we might have uncovered almost everything I hope to God we're wrong. So let's just get to the elephant in the room. And that is the big reveal in this episode that Bernard is actually a replica host of Arnold, who had worked with Robert Ford in the park. Now, this was something that you actually brought up several episodes ago. And obviously the internet, the disgusting freaks they are, the geniuses they are, have been all over this for the better part of a month. What were your thoughts when that happened? And obviously the repercussions, now rewatching this show, knowing what we know with, I guess, mainly all of his scenes with Dolores, which I'm assuming take place in the past with actual Arnold instead of Bernard.
Yeah, so as it kind of started happening on screen, because I had anticipated that among a possible to be one of the possible options for who Arnold was. It didn't quite like register with me on like a story or plot level to where I connected, because they were clearly trying to make it like this very emotional type of like the music and just the way that whole scene was done. But what I was amazed at as I was watching it is, one, just the quality of the, I'm just going to call it filmmaking, even though it's not a film. But, I mean, the episode was directed, like, beautifully. The scene, like, Anthony Hopkins, but even more specifically, Jeffrey Wright's acting with this material was just, like, so extraordinary that it actually, like, made me just, like, be amazed at his ability. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what they're showing us here. But I'm just really impressed with this dude, like, playing out the scene. I wasn't thinking about the plot, which I don't think at all that's what the creators wanted to happen. But that's kind of where my brain was, because I was just so impressed with his performance.
I gotta say this.
But I kind of forgot the plot was even happening. I was just, like, my jaw was on the floor with his ability.
Oh, yeah. As a testament to Jeffrey Wright's portrayal of Bernard and Arnold, imagine in those scenes where he starts fucking, like, bugging out when Robert Ford is basically, like, writing over his programs. Imagine like Nicolas Cage trying to act that scene out.
Oh, God.
And then you realize, if you didn't already at home, how incredible Jeffrey Wright is playing playing this character in this scene.
Yeah, he's fantastic, and I really, really hope that we will continue to see him in this show, and I think we will. I don't think that was a final scene for him by any stretch of the
I think
imagination.
they've set it up well because now that we know that he is Arnold, and I mean, for the roughly, I'd say half of his scenes in the show, at least the predominantly the early scenes, him and Dolores, they can definitely segue back to that and show us a lot of him there. I have a question that I really wanted your opinion on. If you guys are at home, please chime in on all of our social media platforms what you think of this too. But everything that he'd been doing with Dolores now earlier in the show, basically planting these ideas and thoughts in her head, which it looks like ultimately led to his demise as she, as all women did, went crazy and killed him. If you're a woman listener, I'm completely kidding. Men are psychos as well. But that scene now, I started to wonder because we do know that we don't know everything about Arnold and Robert Ford's relationship. Do you think that maybe he started to set in motion all these crazy ass things happening in the park and Dolores going nuts as a way to fuck with Robert Ford and his vision for the park? Or was he really just tinkering with artificial intelligence and things got way out of hand way too fast?
Yeah, see, I think it's the latter, right? Because I think the one who's childish and petty is Robert Ford.
Totally
and I think it's really our friend Matt Geiger has mentioned this. He hasn't been on one of these Westworld podcasts yet. We'll have to get him on for the finale.
Yeah.
But he did mention how the fact that Robert Ford's name is Robert Ford, who was the coward who killed
Jesse James.
Jesse James. There's definitely a reason for that. Like, they wouldn't, and it's a Western, it's a show that has a huge Western influence. They wouldn't just name one of the biggest characters the name of a famous Western lore coward if that wasn't his persona, right? Whereas Arnold, I think, was really just like kind of the pure genius, if you may, and he just wanted to be like, listen, we've perfected these machines. I want to take it further. I want to take it to the point where they can become their own beings. Like, we can basically create life and then let it out in the world to interact with us,
right?
Which is dangerous. But I mean, it seems like that's what he kind of wanted to do, and Robert Ford was more like, I like the idea of them being completely free under my control, which is a quote from an earlier episode.
You know that your partner is a psychopath when Arnold wants to create sentient artificial intelligent life, release it into society, and yet he's the second craziest person between him and Robert Ford. That's not as radical.
We don't even really know what society means in the context of this show because it's been such a closed-off show, right? So who knows? Maybe it's something. I'm sure in future seasons they'll have to start showing us the outside world, but we don't even really know what that means. Maybe it's not as dangerous as it would be if it happened in our world. Like, who knows? Although they do have explosive charges in their back, there's probably a reason for that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. We haven't seen one blow up, so who knows?
One last thing I want to ask about Bernard, because this is something we've speculated on a little bit earlier in the season, so I think we already covered a lot of ground there. But it was nice to finally get confirmation. But his backstory, quote unquote, with his child dying, that is something that actually happened to Arnold, right? Am I interpreting that right? Or is that just something he programmed into him to make him have some sort of emotional, foundation for basically his host?
Yeah, so I don't, unless I'm missing something, I don't think that was made, overly obvious, as in what happened, right? We don't really know. We saw the scene where Bernard is able to kind of, go back and control everything, right? Almost like he's acting with hosts.
Mm-hmm.
But then we saw other scenes where we're not really sure if that's Bernard or Arnold, or if it's Bernard, or if it's, the memory that Robert Ford put in Bernard's mind, or if it's what actually happened. So I don't think we fucking know what happened. I don't think it's been made obvious, and I really haven't set my mind on an interpretation, because now there's all these theories about who the kid is. Some people are saying the kid is Charlotte.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Charlie. Okay.
and is it
That's
Charlie or
insane.
Charlotte?
Well, he
I
calls
always
him Charlie, but that could be a nickname for Charlotte.
right, Charlie, Charlotte, right? So, although the kid kind of looks like a little boy, but who knows?
I mean,
Um,
only the doctor knows.
fact. So yeah, it's just so hard with this show, and I hope we get some sort of answer because obviously season 2 is not going to be coming till at least 2018 probably.
Right.
Just because it takes so long to produce this show and it's so expensive. But again, when the creators made this originally, they had no idea a second season was guaranteed. I mean, they probably had a pretty good idea, but with the new programming guy at HBO, there was probably a legit chance, so they probably wanted to put as many chips on the table as possible to kind of, hey, here's this complete story, and we're going to leave a little inkling of potential future episodes at the end of the season.
Yeah, one good thing in everything that I've read, the character who plays Jimmy Simpson, who plays William, said this on an interview that I saw, and Johnathan Nolan said this as well, along with Lisa Joy, that in the finale next week they will tie up all the loose ends except leave one for us that's a little, I guess, a rosebud that they can kind of percolate and work with in the next season.
Oh, like an old sled?
Basically, yeah. Rosebud is not a person.
Is that like a 67-year-old spoiler alert?
Yeah, sorry, guy. Actually, let's not even tell people the movie so that they don't understand what the spoiler is. If you're under the age of 67, yeah, you might not know. The second thing that I wanted to address, which this is going to be tough for me to even talk about because I have no fucking idea what is actually happening. I just know that something is happening. We have now had the multiple timeline theory confirmed by way of Dolores being shown basically going into the church and then two separate timelines of things happening, and now we know also based on her garb and her attire earlier in the show that happened much further back in Westworld. So I'll just throw this out there, and whatever you can answer because I'm incredibly confused. In the past, obviously she killed Arnold. I wonder why, and does Ford know that Dolores killed Arnold specifically? Because obviously we see him talking to her in the future, and then do we know like which one is present day, and is she on now her like whole crusade where she's gone insane? Because we've talked about this before. It seems really weird that she would go totally nuts and like her characters developed and started to get more and more insane, and then would just sort of plateau and nothing more crazy would happen for the next 29 years. How do we sort of interpret that?
I think they're choosing to only show us a couple of timelines, but if we're under the assumption that she has had the same arc, which is to be like the farmer's daughter wearing the beautiful blue dress and going into town every day.
Dropping the can.
Right, and then Teddy picking it up and all that, then we can just assume that when we see her in the blue dress, that's just like she's been retracing her steps over and over and over trying to get to this point, and maybe she was only able to make it once, right? Because we finally see her at the end in the blue dress, and then we also see her in the like cowgirl outfit. And I think with the cowgirl outfit, obviously, if that's what she was wearing when she was with William, I'm assuming that's in the past because I think William is the Man in Black. They've pretty much made that all but obvious at this point.
Yeah. Although I do think one scene in episode 1 when the Man in Black takes her into the barn to discuss religion, she is wearing that same blue dress. But again, that doesn't really mean anything. That could just be alternating her between loops.
Right, like that. She could have been wearing that every day for 25 years, for all we know. Yeah. Like, there's no. We've seen Maeve put on the same outfit over and over and over in the brothel, so I don't think they're changing garb every single day. That would get pretty expensive, and so I mean, I think for sure the cowgirl outfit is her in the past. For sure, the blue dress is her at some point in the future as she is retracing her steps of what she did with William initially. That's my theory anyways.
And then speaking of William, this is kind of the last thing that I really picked up from the show. And I say that because a lot of it was really just sort of not tying up, but setting in motion things for the finale. This episode was not really about answering questions so much as I think it was positioning us to sort of finish off the season. But the last thing is, just as you were saying, the Man in Black being William was basically confirmed in this episode, but not explicitly, which again leaves us with this weird feeling of like, I hope that's not the last bullet in their chamber in the finale.
Oh,
but
boy.
we see William literally go insane. When Logan wakes up, he realizes that he's killed an entire city full of robots and says, "Oh, hey, I made eggs. How are you?" "Oh, yeah, I murdered everyone, by the way." And he uses the signature knife that the Man in Black has used. So I guess the first thing is, we both really hope that that is not a huge reveal that quote unquote, that they think they're going to drop on us in the finale, because as we pointed out a long time, the internet has had this predicted since episode 2. And as you and I talked about earlier, the only reason that they didn't get it in episode 1 was because we didn't even meet William then. So people have been all over this from the jump.
Let's go through it, right? Okay. They show up to the park, okay? Old logo. That's kind of clue number 1. That's what got people to make the guess initially. But again, it's a logo, right? Then
the clear metaphor is him choosing hats.
Black
also.
hat, white hat.
Yeah.
Right. So on the nose. What else do we see? Then we hear him talking about how he was married, and we see the Man in Black talk about how he was married, and then 30 years of marriage gone to waste. William has talked about how he's gonna marry Logan's sister.
Mm-hmm.
Clue number 3. Clue number 4. He's in this past episode after he kills everybody and gives that weird dark speech to Logan. He's like, "I figured out how to play the game, and by the way, don't call me Billy." So he's literally being like, "I no longer want to be called this," right?
Yeah.
Because the Man in Black has no name that we know of. And finally, clue number 5, we have Dolores coming up from the church. The door's open. She goes, "William," and the Man in Black walks in. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
it's not like you're trying to. This isn't like hard at this point. You wouldn't even have to read Reddit to know this.
I didn't really pick up on the last one. Maybe because I was just so trying to process what was going on with Dolores killing Arnold and apparently everyone else in that basement. Also, I was a little worried that basement was the maze for a second. When she first walked into it, it was very cryptic. It seemed like only she knew how to get to it in the church and the confessional. But clearly it just looked like a place where they were working on the house that, for whatever reason, she remembered to go down into.
Well, it was weird, right? Because she walks into the church and we see all of these other hosts that we've seen in several different scenes before, in several different roles before.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they've all kind of been infected with Arnold's virus, so to speak, and they kind of reached the same place. But for some reason, she was the only one that knew to like go one step further and actually go down and meet him. And maybe that was the test, right? That was Arnold's test. Is like, if I can get at least one of these things to get all the way here and get down in this basement and actually come face to face and talk to me, that's like some sort of barrier, some sort of threshold they would have to like pass for him to realize, oh, they've reached full sentience, or these things are smart enough to be able to do that. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it like clearly just did not go well for him because apparently she lost it and killed him. At least that's what we were told. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Maybe he cheated on her and she just said, you deserve this. An eye for an eye.
An eye for an eye.
Yeah, she somehow knows.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that's probably not.
All right. Well, we have now we have a pod divided, and that always makes for entertaining show. So
Johnathan Nolan's wife was involved, so
Maybe Dolores is like some slut that he dated in college, and she was like, "Oh, she's gonna be a nut job in this show." He's like, "You know what? Fine, I will give you that. Happy wife, happy life." So, last part of the pod here, and I say that, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions that I have still left unanswered. I had 4 when the show started. I had written 2 as we were discussing, and I realized I don't know shit about this show.
I'm glad you're paying attention to what I'm saying and all writing down sentences. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah. First question. Wyatt's timeline. What the fuck is going on with this? And I have a theory that I did not come up with. I'm just going to be the driver of the bandwagon, that perhaps Dolores is somehow Wyatt. I don't mean in the sense that she is the man with the beard walking around, like dressed in drag, or I guess inverted drag. I mean that her killing everyone in the basically the workshop underneath that church seemed to basically foreshadow like someone going on an insane rampage in Westworld, and I could see maybe there being an illusion or that almost carrying over into the actual park. So Wyatt's timeline, what the hell's going on with that? In I guess it's present day now. We know with the Man in Black, but do you think that there's a chance that somehow Dolores and Wyatt could be related, or what do you even think is going on with what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I think Dolores being Wyatt is a possibility. I think another possibility is somehow Teddy is Wyatt, right? We saw the scene where he kind of remembered the same scene he's been remembering one way, where he's kind of the hero. All of a sudden, he was the guy that was going into the town and killing all the innocent people.
Every time he remembers it, he's like, okay, maybe I didn't tell you all the bad shit I did.
Right. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. I feel like the whole Wyatt thing, of everything that this show has done, theory-wise, storyline-wise, for me, that's really been the weakest point. Because I just don't get what we're supposed to think about that. What does that have to do with the overall? Is that kind of what caused the incident 30 years prior that resulted in some crazy disaster that they haven't talked about? Is that why not a single person walking around the offices recognizes Bernard as Arnold?
God, that's so weird. That is one of those things. And again, same with Bernard capturing Elsie, which is actually going to tie into my next question, and her calling him on the phone a second later. Like, there's just some stuff, and J.J. Abrams, like, has a history of this with a few things in Lost, but, like, there's a few things that, like, you can't, even, like, suspending reality and disbelief for this show for a little bit, that you just can't let go, and that's one of them.
Right. Yes. Like, I just, they showed Elsie again, right? Not to get too off topic, but, I mean, it was, like, she's not dead, right? We haven't seen...
That is literally my second question. Is Elsie still alive?
I say yes. We still haven't seen her. He even straight up asks Robert Ford, what did you make me do to her?
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't know. Robert Ford doesn't say, I made you kill her, right? He says something cryptic.
I know, of course not, Bernard. Of course not. Right. Like, yeah, of course not. Why would you do something psychotic? How dare I even question you? It's not like you have a track record of that.
So I say she's still alive in some form somewhere. We still don't know what host Robert Ford is building in the basement of his host dad's house, right? That's been left unanswered.
Yeah.
But maybe she's somewhere there being kept. Maybe he wants to question her. As far as the corporation seems to know, she's just like on vacation. She's just taken leave.
Right. So maybe Ford was like, look, you're just digging a little too deep. You're innocent enough, like you're not directly trying to expose me for doing anything, but I do need to just kind of take you out of the equation for a little bit while I can get my house in order. Maybe that's just what's going on here.
Maybe. I think on the Broforce Squad podcast, we would all be very disappointed if we found out Elsie was dead, because she was like one of the most human characters.
Yeah. We would pour a 40 out on the curb if Elsie is no longer with us.
Exactly.
Speaking of the employees of Westworld, another question I have going forward in the finale, obviously, Stubbs ventures into the park. I actually can't remember why he went into the park.
Let's see. So he has the theory. He's already kind of curious, because we saw him kind of question Bernard.
Yeah.
Right? In the previous episode. And, like, my guess is he's just trying to dig a little deeper. He's going to be the guy that's going to get killed by Robert Ford, because he's actually going to figure out that Robert Ford is causing this.
Yeah, but that was my question.
That's my guess.
So the Ghost Nation that kidnapped him, who do you think sent them to get him?
He was going to find Elsie, by the way. Like, he saw a signal from Elsie's handheld, and he's like, oh, let me go see what's going on, because it was in, like, a remote section of the park.
That makes sense.
So that's why he, like, goes into the park.
So obviously, wherever he is, the Ghost Nation come and grab him, probably in similar fashion to Elsie, just because they don't want anyone to go there. So,
Right.
are we to assume that they too were sent by Robert Ford, and he's protecting his IP and everything that's in that house?
I'm guessing that's what it is, right? Because I mean, yeah, they're not responding to any commands. Like it just seems like if anything is happening in quote a remote section of the park,
Mm-hmm.
rules don't really apply.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like the staff is really aware of this.
It's like
at all.
Vegas.
So they're going
except not
Yes.
fun.
Except not fun at all. It's just like Vegas after 5 a.m. and you're naked and alone in an alley.
Yeah.
That's
someone hands
that's
you a
how-
flyer, and you're like, oh, no, I don't want this. So I guess
I'll see you
I'm gonna
tomorrow at the charity.
I'm gonna assume Stubbs, like Elsie, is alive. Maybe they even end up in the same place.
Yeah. I really, when that scene happened, I was really like, ooh, shoot him with an arrow. I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
But then, of course, they just cut away.
When
Because
Stubbs,
they can't just explain to us how that works, right? Like, just tell us.
yeah, please. Like, can they actually murder him? Will they?
Maybe. Quick aside, speaking of murder, was the Man in Black literally, like, about to die? Or is that still, like, fake tension?
When he had like the noose around his neck and the horse was there?
Right. So
here's the thing.
The horse...
At this point, if there was a way for him to have lived through that, if he wasn't able to cut the rope, I'm trying to figure out like what would have happened. Like
right,
how?
like is the horse is obviously a host, right? So
I don't
is
know.
the horse somehow programmed to like not like somehow recognize the fact that oh this is wrong, I can't keep running because there's a human being here and they'll die if I keep running.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, like I mean that was crazy. I was just like, what? Am I supposed to feel real tension here, or I don't understand because they haven't like clearly explained to us how the rules work. In instances where they have explained to us how the rules work, such as in the town that we see in the beginning, you know, they mention a few times like, oh, you can't get hurt by bullets because you're a human. It hurts a little bit, or it doesn't hurt. You know, like. But that's all they've done. Like, out in the outskirts of the park, we have no idea how anything works.
And I think
like,
I need
can
to
they
make
actually be killed?
I need to make a clear delineation. We've said before that certain things in the show were featured very kind of on the nose exposition, but I don't personally mind exposition if it actually there are times it is needed in shows. And I wouldn't mind someone like literally like a park employee being like, "Oh, you know that the bullets can't hurt them because XYZ." Like cuz that's something at this point I'm really wondering. And I'll just be totally honest, I don't think they're going to tell us.
Okay, and I think that's the part where, while we both like J.J. Abrams, I think that's the part where he literally came in a meeting and he's like, but what if we don't tell them how the weapons work?
Yeah. But that's not even like a mystery, it's just annoying.
Yes, exactly. Like, and his stuff usually, it just seems to have that kind of a brushstroke over it. Like, that's something he would do.
Yeah.
It's like, well... It's kind of interesting, but then why? It's kind of affecting the way I watch the rest of the show, and it's kind of affecting the way I watch some scenes.
Yeah, I'm way more annoyed by it than I am curious.
Right, so I wish you would just kind of tell me. Yeah, just have like a tech explain it. They've had how many people like walk in those weird spacesuits to like clean up?
Yeah.
Literally just like...
Some offhand comment like that. I'd be fine. Yes, that's exposition, but it's needed, and that's why exposition exists. Other question, this one we can probably answer pretty quick. What do you think will happen with Delos? Will they get their information out of the park smuggled in Mr. Abernathy, which I think is a plan that is really, really underestimating how smart Robert Ford is and is going to blow up in their face? And then if they do get out of the park, is it a season 2 storyline where we actually figure out what the fuck happens with it and what's going on with them?
To answer the first question... no, I think they're really I think that plan's hilarious.
Yeah, it's cute.
Like, yeah, he's
and
like
what's even cuter is they have Sizemore like spearheading the whole operation.
Right, so that's how you know, unless it's a classic, it's almost like an archetypal character. It's like the fool that somehow ends up with the gold.
That's true.
And you're like, wait, that guy figured it out? Right, so it could be that. I mean, I wouldn't put it, it's a classic like story archetype that we've seen before. He clearly is like I don't want to say he's stupid, but he's like the biggest buffoon of all the characters, and like over the top buffoon.
Yeah.
Outside of the two techs, obviously, who are just getting like destroyed by Maeve mentally and physically and every other way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Unless they're gonna do something like that, I don't think that plan's gonna work at all. I think it's gonna be a way for Ford to maybe somehow, I don't know if kidnap Charlotte, but something to where they need to give Tessa Thompson something to do in this show.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
Besides a robot.
She's just kind of been in rooms, just, kind of talking, pretending to be smarter than everyone. And I get it, it kind of works, but I don't think they cast an actress as good as her if she doesn't have. I think she's gonna have a big role to play in the finale.
Yeah, I agree.
That would be one guess I have for the final episode.
Another big question is, and you and I have tried to figure this out throughout the show, and I have kind of been deferring it again to something that they can answer in season 2, and the fans will not be that frustrated by it because of everything else going on. But how does Maeve fit into all this? I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, I guess we'll see, right? Like, my whole thing is that we are going to see some, like, grand escape plot line in the final episode. It's basically the length of a movie, right? It's 90 minutes long. They can play around with multiple plots, and at least one of those plots is going to have to somehow build a bridge to season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And what better bridge than literally having Maeve get outside of this place, and all of a sudden we know where we are.
That was my last question: is when/where does this take place? If you made me bet my life savings on it right now, I would say not on Earth.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say I think it's on Earth. I think it's way in the future. We're talking like at least 100, 200 years from now, because they've mentioned
how like disease is basically
health.
eradicated.
It's like there's no more disease. Like we're just clearly, so unless there's like some crazy scientific breakthrough that happens, which is not normally how science works, right? Like, although technically we did invent soap, and then like 20 years later we were like, oh, what's this electricity? And then 50 years later we're on the moon. So
we found penicillin because someone left like a loaf of bread out and it got moldy, and they were like, oh, that by the way cures like a lot of shit. So yeah.
By the way, please don't fact check that timeline. It's probably really inaccurate, but something like that.
It's actually so accurate that you don't need to waste time looking it up, is what we're saying.
Somebody will and like email us angrily and say, by the way, you're telling people the wrong information. We don't need that email. Don't send us that. We will delete it.
But if you've already typed up half of it, just send it to us.
Yeah, it's fine. We're desperate for attention. So I still think we got very little Maeve in this episode. We just saw her, having sex with the bandit guy.
Yep. She likes that guy a lot.
Yeah, she's there. Because of his traits, right? In terms of like literally his traits as a host and what he is good and what he's bad at. Like, he's really good at violence. And I think she sees him as a good ally to have in whatever plan she's putting together to escape the place.
Yeah, and he also seems to be... He's like a leveled up host because he like remembers stuff as well, kind of like her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like he caught a little bit of the virus too, right? He was like, I remember this. This has happened before, right? Yeah. Like when she grabbed his hand and kind of touched it to like the area where she had been stabbed before. Mm-hmm. He's like, this has happened before. By the way, I love the scene where they opened the safe and his face was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like, what? That was great. That was a great, like...
It's like when you open your lunchbox in elementary school and your mom forgot to put a Kit Kat in it. You're like, what the fuck is this, Mom?
Right, or like every day I look at my checking account.
Cobwebs.
Help me.
Heard that. I have a prediction that isn't really going out on a limb, but I think would be, number one, a nice nod to the Michael Crichton original without having to actually use any of the campy ideas that he had, and could also set up potential future seasons, but also if it gets a bad reaction from fans could just be ignored. But I think it'd be cool if Maeve escapes. We sort of see and learn where and when this is all set, but also we learn that there are other worlds similar to Westworld that Delos has. Because the Man in Black makes a reference offhand earlier in the series where someone says, "Do you own this world?" And he goes, "This one, yes." Now, a lot of people interpret that as like, "No, I don't own like the world outside of here," but I kind of interpret it as, "Yeah, I own like the Western one." I personally don't actually. I don't think that'd be cool, but I think that could be what's happening. If that makes sense to predict.
It's possible. I mean, the name of the show would then be kind of dumb. Like if next season starts and we're like in Roman world, and it's still
What
called
if
Westworld, I'm gonna be
What if
like
it's not called
confused.
Westworld next season?
Well, what if season 2 of Westworld is actually season 1 of HBO show Rome? What about that?
Everything is connected, all of it.
I mean, it's HBO. You never know.
Yeah.
It's not TV. It's HBO.
That's a great slogan. We should mail that to them and have them like, "Hey, don't worry. Just fire all your marketing people. We got this."
Yeah, all the YouTube money we've been making, they just took it all because I said that on the podcast, so we're screwed now.
Worth it. Guys, English got a little aggressive tonight. It may have cost us, literally. That's all I had. This episode took a lot out of me. I'm very, very, I don't want to say nervous about the finale. I'm still excited.
No, we're nervous.
Yeah, we're nervous. I feel like
we're nervous.
It's like it's a big night, and actually, you and I will not even be able to watch it as it airs. But
yeah, it's like you're about to go into your kid's recital, and you've seen him practice, and you're like, this isn't gonna be good, but I gotta be there, right? I gotta show up.
Yeah, I get the wife's making me. There's no way out of this. So I don't know. We'll obviously connect with you guys next week after the hour-and-a-half long finale, and hopefully all but one will be answered. Hopefully we have not committed ritualistic suicide because we're so upset with the way this ended.
What are you most excited about? Which storyline are you most excited about to come to a conclusion?
I think the Man in Black, because I think I still have a lot of faith that there is more to it than just him being William. And if you think about it in future tense, or him as the Man in Black, we still know very little about kind of like what the maze could be. So I think that's where there's the most potential for a really cool reveal. How about you? What are you actually most excited for?
Maeve. I think by far that's the best potential for a cool reveal because I think she has the potential to show us the outside, right?
Yeah.
She has the potential to do the zoom out shot. And I think at this point, I think we've guessed everything else. That's something that almost in no way whatsoever has been hinted at. And so I'm kind of holding out hope for that. And it's just going to make me really excited because it's like Jimmy Simpson said in that interview, right? It answers a question, but it's not a cliffhanger. You tell us exactly where we are. It's answering a question. It's also telling us, but it's getting us excited for the next season. So
last thing I'll ask before we go, who do you think of the main characters will survive season 1?
Oh, boy. Well, what does it even mean? Are you saying, like, will we see the actor again on this show? Because this is the kind of show where it's like Lost, right? They could always just back as ghosts. And Lost, it was always like, oh, this character died. And then we just saw them again as, like, flashbacks or ghosts or whatever. So,
yeah.
Do you mean,
is physically alive at the end of next Sunday's episode.
Host or human?
Yes.
Okay. Who do I think will survive of the main people? I think Robert Ford will survive.
Really? Wow.
I do.
I was going to go heavy on the death of him.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, I think that's just me being selfish because I just want more Anthony Hopkins. That's really why I'm saying that.
Fair enough.
I think, obviously, Ed Harris is going to survive. I think Dolores is going to survive. Maeve is going to survive. I don't feel good about Teddy because there's a theme.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't say Teddy's like a main character, but he's probably one of the strongest secondary characters. don't really feel good about Stubbs. And
What
I
about
guess
Sizemore?
I feel good about Charlotte.
Yeah.
Sizemore has no chance. He's gonna fall off that bridge.
Yeah,
I'm
he will.
still
He'll
like
crash into
holding
that
out
map.
hope. Like,
I'm gonna get morbid
yeah,
here.
he's just gonna.
I'm only going to predict Charlotte and Maeve survive.
Wow.
I think the Man in Black.
Ask for season 2.
I think the Man in Black. First off, this is the cynic in me that I don't think Ed Harris and Anthony Hopkins will do a second season of this show. Although, to be totally honest, I didn't think probably a year and a half ago that actors of that caliber they could even get on a TV show. But that shows you how much things have changed. I feel like the Man in Black is going to meet his welcomed demise at somehow in the maze. He's just been a very dark character, and I almost feel like they could almost do like a poetic way of him dying and have it sort of come full circle. I just think Robert Ford is too much of a lunatic to make it out of this season. Like somehow, he's something crazy is going to happen that's going to kill him. I don't know. Although at this point, who can best him? He's like.
Yeah, that's true. Dolores, I guess. I don't know. Remember they had that conversation where she's like, "Are we friends?" And he's like, "Oh no,
I wouldn't say that, Dolores."
So.
Yeah. I'll say Dolores lives too, just because Evan Rachel Wood is awesome. So.
Yes, I agree. And there's also, you kind of have to look at it like there's a couple of veteran HBO actors, like Evan Rachel Wood was in several seasons of True Blood, and Jeffrey Wright was in several seasons of Boardwalk Empire, and I just think HBO likes those people and wants them in their shows.
Yep.
So that's why I also think we're going to see Jeffrey Wright again.
I would love that. All right, guys, that is all we have for this episode. Again, we're going to try and get a quad pod going, get all 4 chairs on the season finale of Westworld next week. Please chime in, let us know your thoughts. I know there's a lot of theories and things floating out there. If we missed anything or if we're just way off and not even close, holler at us on Facebook, Bro4Squad, 3 words. On Twitter, at Bro4Squad. Email us, bro4squad@gmail.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes. Again, Bro4Squad, 3 words. For Alex English, I am Jeff Hornacek.
Our Pinterest is really coming along, by the way. Our Pinterest is really good.
Yeah, if you have
a really good cake recipe.
If you have a good casserole recipe, do not be shy. And on that, I'm going to go look up casserole recipes. For Alex English, I am Jeff Hornacek. We are the Bro4 Squad. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you